Yes, ma'am. Ms. Parker?
Here.
Mr. Bowen?
Here.
Mr. Kane? Absent. Mr. Chris?
Here.
And Mr. Knuckles?
Here.
Okay, so the first item on the agenda, the meetings of our previous minutes of our previous meeting on March 23rd. If we all can, we'll just go over.
Welcome to approve the minutes last meeting. Second.
The motion has been made by Ron, second by. Sorry. Okay, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign, motion passes. Okay, moving on to item number B, report from public safety departments. Starting with number 1, emergency risk management emergency manager. Hello.
Good evening, Chairman or Chair members, my bad. I won't take up too much of your time. I'll make, we didn't have too much going on the last couple months, but let's give you a little heads up of what we've had. In the last quarter, I attended the PIT conference, and we'll go over that a little bit better. We'll did some self-insurance fund options, working with also working with the department, the state's Department of Emergency Management, and been working some workers' comp claims and keeping an eye, monitoring the insurance claims. So as far as the PIT conference goes, it's going to be the Partners in Preparedness Conference. It was held in Albuquerque and over 3 days in April. It's mostly a workshop, a training workshop that allows the emergency management community and the health community. It's sponsored by the Department of Health and the Department of Emergency Management as a training workshop, as a networking workshop, and spent 3 days up there recreating my working relationship with the other partners in the community, in the New Mexico community. We're able to do some follow-up, the wrap-ups of the COVID events. We were able to do some upcoming drug-related concerns that the health departments are worried about, the new version of was that really bad drug that's been out, the fentanyl, the new version of fentanyl. Yes. I can't remember the exact name, starts with an X, but they're calling it zombie, and it's much worse than the fentanyl. So that's something that the community is going to have to deal with here shortly or now. And of course, just like I said, creating a strong relationship with the other partners, responding to partners in New Mexico. I did work with the self-insurers fund. The self-insurers funds, it's going to be the end of the fiscal year, the beginning of the next fiscal year. So we're wrapping up some of the old stuff, making certain that everything's set up for the new fiscal year, making certain that the properties the city properties are written down properly so that they're well insured, make sure that we're not missing anything for hail, for instance, that we've had to deal with lately. Also working with the department heads to make certain that everybody has their safety hours. They're due tomorrow, so I know that a lot of departments are rushing to get those, but actually overall they're doing a great job. They're meeting the department their requirements. I have been working closely with the Department of, it's NMDH-SEM, wonderful name, New Mexico Department of Homeland Security Emergency Management. I won't go through that again. They're the state's version of the emergency management. So I have been working with them pretty closely. They are doing a lot of monitoring on this season's weather, mostly because of what they learned during last season, the fire. Half of New Mexico was on fire last season, so they're monitoring that very, very closely. So we're doing bi-weekly meetings every other week to make certain that we are monitoring the fire, the weather. They're also monitoring the current storms, and we're just sharing resource options. Working with them allows me to maintain a strong relationship with them so that if we do have a local emergency, I have immediate partners in the state who we can work with and bring down locally for resources, personnel equipment, and that's just how we cooperate through that. So we've been working together with that. Workers' comp and insurance claims. You'll be happy to know that we only had one workers' comp since our last meeting. And due to proper PPE usage, it could have been a potentially a serious injury. And it was actually, I wouldn't say minor because it's still an injury. We have to worry about it. But the person expected a full recovery, and their safety equipment did protect them how it's supposed to. So we've had one, they're going to recover properly. As far as insurance claims, we had 0 insurance claims from the public. So no one's trying to do a tort claim again since the last meeting. And we have one city claim for a damaged light or intersection equipment. I don't know if it's exactly the traffic light or light pole. I actually just have to do some follow-up on that. It happened last week. So that's actually pretty good. That's really good for the last 2 months. Sometimes those claims will rush in and they'll hit us several in 1 month, and we can go several months without anything. So we're actually doing really good on those. Next quarter, some of the things we're gonna be working on is now, of course, you guys are most likely aware of the storms. We have had extremely strong storm season so far. We've had baseball size hail. Luckily, it hasn't actually hit the city, but it still has affected the county. We've actually had a tornado in the county already. Not many people know about that because it was in the middle of nowhere. I think 2 cows might have seen it. That's about it. Luckily, let's go ahead and keep it that way. The storm has gone to Texas before they caused city damage, major damage. That's not bringing it down. Like I said, we've had significant hail, and the size of that hail could be just as deadly, if not stronger, than a tornado in our areas. So that is something that we have to monitor, something we're going to keep an eye on, and something I'm working with the state. I'm keeping in constant communication with the state's emergency management, the state's the weather service as well. And I've been bothering Sarah every night, bombarding her with the updates that I do get. Sometimes 2 o'clock in the morning, I'm still sending these to her. So we're trying to keep an eye on that and making certain that there's nothing we can do to prevent it, but we can respond to it as quickly as we can. Next quarter, we're trying to work on some training opportunities. The Department of the Emergency Management State, they are actually pushing through a lot more training opportunities that they haven't in the last year. So they're trying to push those through. I'm going to take advantage of those free training opportunities to try to help prepare myself better for upcoming issues. And of course, the fiscal year is coming up. So we're wrapping up the current fiscal year grants opportunities and getting ready for the next fiscal year grants. And as I said, don't want to take up too much of your time. That's really all I have tonight. Is there any questions?
I've got one, Anthony.
Yes, sir.
Thank you. Are y'all offering any kind of public education or information for folks during this tornado season as what to do?
We've been doing some social media public education,
Right.
trying to get people to sign up for the Hyper Reach. I know we do have a lot of right now a lot of it is in Facebook, but we do have a lot of community partners in Facebook, such as that do spread our word around. But we're trying to get as many people as we can signed up for that mass notification. We've also been doing some education on what to do, what the difference between a watch and a warning, what to do when there's a watch, what to do when there's a warning, what to do during and immediately after. Those are specifically targeting tornadoes, but it's actually a general information that actually works good with almost any storm.
I think the social media, the alert system is working well with, my whole family's on it. But these young folks, and I'm not gonna stereotype, I had 2 calls that night. What do we do? Well, you find the interior rooms, a place of safety, hopefully a helmet, blanket, whatever you can. But so many of them don't really know. They laughed when the weatherman said to put on your bicycle helmet in your place of safety. They thought that was funny. But they really are just not educated.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I know that Facebook is a limited media, and I would like to get more options out there, and that's something I would like to look into to see how a variety of media to help educate the public. Something as simple as putting on your shoes when you have hail coming on, because people don't think about it. If it breaks your window, you're walking around your barefoot in your house. But there's minor things that people do, bicycle helmets.
Yeah.
People don't think about it, but yeah, we do need to educate people and look for more media and how to reach them.
Okay, thank you.
Now, I have a question. So in regards to that kind of, so back in the day, we used to be able to do live down in the basement of the campus meeting hall and the university. And I think I saw some people on Facebook or talking, is that still available? Where can you go? Is there another place? Do we have a shelter? Which I don't think that they're letting them use that anymore, are they?
I do not think that there is a public available shelter in Portales. Now, I'm certain that if people show up to certain areas during an emergency, that they probably won't be denied and pushed back out into the hail and the rain. But there is no official shelters available. The best thing to do is get an interior of your house, ground floor or basement, not to leave your house. And that's really the best thing we have locally.
Back when I was a kid, the courthouse was always available. I don't know where those ended up with the basements courthouse.
There's options, but nothing official that I know of. So, yeah,
No, time ago.
Right.
I've heard that as well. And that's,
Well, the sign's still there, I think, for fallout shelter.
Oh, is
Yeah,
it?
yeah.
It is,
still on
yeah.
the courthouse.
Okay, well, thank you very much. We appreciate you very much.
Thank you.
And I think that's the key, to be educated.
Thank you.
And to prepare, because you never know, like the other night, that storm, we thought it was gonna rain and all of a sudden that hail just appeared, so it was like going crazy.
We did get very, very lucky on that. I said that the hail, I think it was 1.5 inches was the biggest I seen in town. But baseball size hail hitting, like I said, I'd rather have the tornado hit than hail over Portales, because that could be much more deadly than, or
Right.
just as deadly as a tornado.
Does anybody else have any questions?
I just comment that, if you're out in that hail in an automobile, that is very dangerous.
Oh, yeah.
I had a good friend from Roswell, and she was using a university car, knocked out the windshield, both side windows. She was sitting in ice when the hail was over, but she was all right. I can't imagine what would happen if the wind was blowing in the right direction. It would have come right in, glass and all,
Yeah,
into her.
yeah, it's a terrifying situation. Something like that, just pull over to the side, put your car in park, take your feet off the brakes, because you don't want your brake lights on, because in the hail, they can't see you and they might follow brake lights. So if you're on the side of the road, they might just ram right into you thinking you're part of the road.
Yeah.
So don't put your brakes on?
Put your car in park and keep your feet off the brakes. You don't want your brake lights on. You want to pull completely off to the side of the road, off the road completely as far as you can get safely. And make certain your lights aren't on in any way, because if there's no visibility, people will follow the tail lights in front of them. So if you're on the side of the road and your brake lights are on, they think that that's the road and they'll ram right into you.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Good to know. Okay, moving on to.
Thank you, Madam Chair, to committee. As always, it's our pleasure to serve this community, and it's our goal to be prepared and ready to serve, to provide the highest quality service to our community. Moving on to slide 3, I apologize for my error. The total calls so far this year up till yesterday was 1,344, with 1,147 EMS calls and 197 fire calls. Within that, there were the 317 instances where multiple calls came in, overrunning our current response capability, causing potential delays in care and response to our community. Moving on to the next slide, we've had some really great accomplishments. We've got a really good plan for inspections. I know the last time we met, it was a pretty tough discussion of what we want to do with business inspections. Thankfully, Kelly and the city manager came up with a great idea. Kelly's working, you're on hazmat right now, right?
Submitted for the classes, they're just waiting for the approvals.
So she's starting her prereqs so that she can get certified to start doing inspections. So that there's less delay for our community, which is a great option. Also, we have 8 personnel leaving tomorrow. Well, 8 students and 3 instructors headed to Socorro for their final firefighter 1 and 2 burns. They'll do their liquid, flammable liquids and LPG burns, and then they're testing for fire 1 and 2. We also have 4 personnel in paramedic, 1 in EMT basic, and as of today, we are fully staffed for the first time in a long time. So as training increases, it's our hopeful wish that we'll be able to split back up and get Station 2 staffed. We did a survey over EMS week. We had 153 responses in 10 days, and we gave out a prize pack donated by PFD personnel. We allowed people to put their name and phone number, and we drew them out of a hat, and we're able to give away a pretty good prize to somebody that they'll pick up sometime this week. But to go over those results, we had 112 out of the 153, which is 73%, have used our services for EMS. When looking at a star rating, we had 92.9% gave us 5 stars. 4 stars, we had 6 people, 3 stars, 1 person, and we had 2 people with 1 star. I have looked long and hard at those 2 negative reviews. Neither one said that they've ever used our service. So you can weigh that with however you'd like. I do plan on sending that whole survey out to council during the monthly update. For the type of service that they want the city to provide, we had 74%, which was 114 respondents said they want paid full-time like we have now. We had 69 say they wanted a combination of paid and volunteer, 17 want volunteer, and 10, which was just over 6%, want privatized, which I think we'll talk a little bit more about later. As far as response time, the majority of people said they want a 6 to 10 minute response time, which was 93 people, and then 53 or 52 rather, so they want a 1 to 5 minute response time. As far as the level of service they expect, 50 or 60%, 92 respondents want advanced, a little over 31%, which was 49 responses, want intermediate, almost 6%, which was 9 want basic, and 5 people said some other combination of those. Moving on to some of the comments as far as suggestions to improve, I did list all of them in your packets for you to read over and laugh at later, but I thought I'd read a couple. As we all know, in all we do, there's always room for improvement. That being said, the staff at PFD is always willing to help anyone, anywhere, on and off duty. Response time and willingness to dive right in has always been excellent in my books. When I have called, I personally don't have any suggestions for improvement. My hat's off to all the staff. Next one, not as positive, remove current leadership. They need an overhaul of new management. They do space T serve this community only themselves. I think they don't serve this community only themselves. The next one, I believe wait time and efficiency of care of those in need, as well as efficient direction for bystanders, could always improve. Maybe local events for children and young youth can inspire more. Thought that was a good idea. They are all wonderful people. I can't think of anything they need to do to improve on. For the suggestions, we had 96 responses. And then I gave the community the opportunity to provide compliments to the guys to try to build morale. And so I'll read a couple of those out of the 100 responses. The Portales Fire Department is a great asset to the community. We are so lucky to have them. There are things these guys see, hear, smell that cannot be unseen, unheard, and unsmelled. They show up and help at the worst times in people's lives. They're easy to overlook until you need them. Thanks for doing the job and serving your community. And the last one is, my girlfriend works in the schools, and the fire department has been beyond kind in any setting with the kids. They're willing to come out and interact, and I know that it is very impactful for the community. So thank you for your support, and I'll be glad to answer any questions.
Glad to hear the board staff.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, you ready?
Thank you.
For comments. Okay, very
Thank you.
good.
Thank you.
Very much. Next, department chief Williams.
If you have any questions on the staff, I'll be happy to answer any of those. Currently, what we're doing is trying to get ready for the 4th of July fireworks show, parade, Heritage Days. As well as we just got our one officer back from the academy on Friday. He'll start his field training on tomorrow. So we're happy to hear that. We've got 2 more slated to go to the next academy. At this moment, we're down 6, but the officers we do have are providing the utmost quality of service and have great attitudes. Other than that, I mean, we've got the 160,000 from the state for vehicles, so we'll be able to get 3. We'll stretch that out to be able to get the 3 new vehicles, which will help greatly since we've spent right around 70,000 on repairs this year alone for vehicles that we have in service.
What kind of vehicles are we looking at?
Uh,
Somebody had commented, do you have 4 good ride pickups?
That's what we have right now. What we're actually gonna get this time is Ford Explorers, the police interceptor model. Simply because they cost, there's, I think, $60 or $80 difference between them and a pickup. And they have the Explorers on the lot. So that's huge right now because if we wanted pickups, they said there's no telling when we might get them. Or even if we would get them in time to use that money from the state for them. So
So we're going to get how many?
3. Right. Yeah, they'll be, well, they're cheaper than for a private citizen to buy, so they'll be right around 48,000 a piece.
How much?
48,000 just for the vehicle.
And what did you say they are? Like
The Ford Explorers.
44, okay. Familiar with that one.
Right.
Anything else? Any questions, comments? Do those?
I've got a comment. I would like to let you know that I really appreciate the job your officers did for me the other day. We had a dog incident again. It was taken care of very professionally, very quickly. I was informed of what was going on and re-informed of what had happened. It was just a great day, and those guys did a great job.
Well, thank you. Yeah, we'd spent the last several weeks doing a lot of escorting the students, walking to different schools, parks, things like that. So,
Yeah. Just one of them days, it could have been a very bad day and it turned out good.
yes.
Thank you.
Okay, very good. Thank you, Chief.
Thank you.
Okay, moving on to item number C, discussion regarding privatizing ambulance services. Chief Kathy.
Thank you again, Madam Chairman and committee. City manager asked that I read an email, excuse me, from her. It's gonna be on the screen. It's on your paper. It's kind of small, but it reads, Chief, please read my statement tonight on behalf of the RFP request for proposal for ambulance services. Thank you for allowing the chief to read on my behalf. I am at the Mental Health Symposium in Clovis at this time. The RFP that I want to present to council for ambulance services is an attempt to obtain information and alternative options for our already taxed fire department staff. Chief Kathy as presented several areas of concerns with our staff being overworked, underpaid, and what safety concerns those pose. I feel that doing my job efficiently and effectively requires thinking outside of the box at times. This is one of those times. Issuing an RFP for ambulance services is an attempt to offer more support to our city, community, and overworked fire department staff. If at any time you would like to meet regarding this RFP, please let me know. Respectfully, Sarah Austin, City Manager. So as Chief Knuckles so eloquently put it earlier, there's the myth of the perfect service model. Each option has its positives and negatives. Although there is a best service model for each community, there's no perfect service model across the board. So we can't look at a big city and make it perfectly fit us. We have to decide what's best for our individual community. There's the volunteer service, which has its positives and negatives. With a volunteer service, of course, it's a lot cheaper for the fiscal agent because they don't have to pay personnel. But you also sacrifice response time and availability if volunteers are having to come from their other job, their home, wherever they may be to respond to the station, then respond to the community or the incident. The private for-profit model, a lot of cities and counties across our nation are going away from that right now. In the neighborhood of 1,000 that I found across our nation are switching back from the private model to a public model to run through their fire service, which is the next one. There's single role, where you have a fire division that's all they do is fire, and an EMS division that's all that they do is EMS. And then there's the dual role, which is what we have now, where employees provide both fire and EMS response. And then, of course, there's many other combinations in between. And if at any point you have questions, just yell. Some of the considerations that I think are very important is the quality of service provided our community, the level of service, whether that's first responder, EMT basic, EMT intermediate, and or paramedic. Then, of course, response time to our community is important. Then the big thing is budgetary concerns. If we do go with a private service, we have to pay that private service a contract fee to come in and run calls. Then we also lose any EMS billing revenue that we get from those calls, which is a pretty large amount. So our current service model is fire-based with dual role employees. We have 4 Type 1 ALS ambulances, and we service a 308 square mile response zone. We also provide mutual aid and receive mutual aid from our volunteer services throughout our county. And we started running ambulance in 1974. Looking at a private model, again, it requires the contract costs plus the loss of EMS billing revenue. And then through the contract, you designate, or the city will have to designate the level of service and the capabilities and the expectations of that private service. And I'll be glad to answer any questions if you have any.
For 1974, maybe.
The mortuary.
The hearse.
If
Three
you
in
were,
the back of a hearse.
yeah,
Both guys jumped in the front seat and they all do the hospital.
and they'd look in the back when they got to the stop sign. If you were still breathing, they would turn and go to the hospital. If not, they'd turn and go to the mortuary.
That's the honest truth. That's how it works.
In 1974, the mortuary came over to the city and threw the ambulance keys on the desk and said, "We're done. It's your baby."
Wow.
So for just under, well, next year will be 50 years. We've been the go-to for fire and EMS for this community.
Yeah, we've got pictures of that down at the stage. I hope her. Yes, very interesting.
What does it normally cost to do the private?
It's all over the place. It depends on the scope of work that is expected. I've seen estimates as low as 60,000 per year per ambulance, all the way up to over 500,000 per year per ambulance.
For ambulance, there's multiple times y'all use multiple.
Realistically, to completely take over the service we provide, you would need at least 4 ambulances. At least. Realistically, I would like to have 5 ambulances.
I don't know, if you look into it enough, but I know. And this was years ago when ambulance service came in the police area. And they came in, the city still had to pay that to make sure that they made the money. That they
Yep.
Needed to operate. They, actually worked for them for a while. And, we billed, so we got any billing, but anything that was short was supplemented back by the city. Plus, there was another agreement there that.
Yeah.
To make sure that they could even.
Well,
Get by,
yeah.
Of course, at that time, heck, we were lucky to run 2 or 3 a day,
Mhm.
if that, and so, I don't know. I don't know what the cost would be to the city, but I just can't imagine them coming in and just saying, we're gonna take the revenue that we get.
What stereotypically happens is they come in and lowball their first year's offer. So I could see them coming in with an agreement of about 180,000 a year for 3 ambulances for this community. But then you figure in the over $700,000 lost in EMS billing revenue, you're looking at right at $1 million that the city's paying out and not recouping. Then after that first year, after some time and fire department equipment dilapidates, training shifts focus from EMS to fire, then they go up on their contract historically. The city of Borger just got an agreement with, I believe it was AMR for 1.5 million. And they're pretty comparable to our size.
Is that cheap?
Borger, the city of Borger,
Okay.
Texas. With that, the city decided to ship it back to the fire department. And then if you ever go away from it, it's a pretty expensive startup cost to get it back going again.
The contract was $1.5 million flat, and then they just kept revenue, the city paid $1.5 million, plus they got to keep the revenue
Yes, sir.
and do all that.
And that's typical. I mean, for a company to come in and lowball that first 3-year contract. And then after 3, get ready, because Ross has just dealt with it, and I personally know the managers of the other company that was there. And they went up from $1 million to $5 million in 3 years.
Well, and you just, of course, you know, I guess if you look at saving, I don't even know if it's saving money, but. What kind of a fire department, because you only run 197 calls. You know, of course, that's what, just half a year, but still.
Yeah.
When you look at the real need, it's the EMS.
Mhm. Well, and for our ISO rating, we still have to maintain personnel, because to be quite honest, it could be the complete negative end of the scale to where we become a volunteer fire department, and then the private EMS service runs EMS calls. But that would negatively impact not only what we receive in fire fund, but also our ISO score, which would increase everyone's insurances.
But then the revenue that you're getting,
Yes, sir.
you try to maintain basically what you're maintaining now without really having.
Yes, sir.
But to me, it's definitely a lot of stuff.
Well, there's a lot of other negatives to it as well that haven't been discussed. Such as fire fund and this new fire station. If you don't have the staff to staff it, which obviously if you go out for ambulance service, you're not gonna need that. They're gonna want all that money back. The state is gonna want every penny of it back. So that's just a small token. If you can't staff it, it's no longer a fire station.
I understand the need for revenue to try to save, but at the same time, that's one of the main services I think the city provides.
Well, and my concern is that our community is well taken care of, with a high level of EMS service as well as a high capability. I realize it's city council's right to choose the mechanism that they want to provide this service. We've been that mechanism for almost 50 years, and I hope to maintain that. I'm not for privatizing EMS. I think we're better off reinvesting what it would cost and what we lose in our current service is where I stand.
I'll agree with you on that comment, the high level of service y'all provide.
Thank you.
Firsthand, because I work right next to it.
Yep.
I myself don't want to privatize it.
Chief, correct me if I'm wrong, you know, there's some great paramedics out there that work for private services, I'm not knocking them, but they have no retirement, they have no benefits, none of them do. Do you think they're gonna get the cream of the crop? No, I've been there and seen them, you know, some of them are great, but they're like everyone else, they have to hire who they can get right now, that is.
They're gonna have to pay with it, but.
And they don't offer much other than a decent salary.
It's cheaper necessarily, but that's how the private service can do it cheap, but they're not offering the same.
Absolutely,
Yeah.
absolutely, they're not paying their personnel.
No, but our people also need to understand how much this benefits are worth.
They don't.
Yes, sir.
You're absolutely correct.
Yes, sir.
Um,
Well, and I looked up reviews on 2 of the big private companies in our area, and both of which were a 1 out of 5 stars. Now, I may have been a little strategic in our survey that went out on EMS week, but with us being an average of 4.9 stars, that speaks highly of the service my personnel provide. And I feel very strongly it's my job to advocate for my people and the service we provide, and that's what I'm going to do. I've asked that the city manager bring this back to Public Safety Committee before it goes to council for y'all's support or not. It may require a special meeting, so I'm going to respectfully ask for that possibility when the time comes. I don't think this is something that the city's rushing towards at this point, but I do think it's something that they're trying to get information on. So I would make that request to you, Madam Chairman, if that's a possibility.
But I agree with you and Councilman Bowen too. I do not agree with that at all. I think that's just something that, oh my gosh, you start heading in that direction and like you said, and then for some reason it doesn't work and it ends up being more than we thought. And then they said, you know what, go back, like you said, here we go, starting it up, and it's just. Yeah, no, I think the foundation up there, it's a good foundation, we just need to, yes.
Madam Chair, if it doesn't come to another special meeting, as Chief mentioned, will we not have an opportunity as a committee to recommend to the council not prioritize the impact?
Well, that would be our recommendation, that's what we choose.
Right, so what I'm getting at, if there's not another meeting prior to the RFP going to council, we won't have that opportunity to meet again and discuss it. So I think that there should be some decision made.
Can we do that
I-
now?
we have
Is that-
I don't
does it-
see, that's a Carly question.
I'd like to see the data, you know, to see, but I, right now, just.
Yeah.
I'm not in agreement.
Well, I've had the opportunity to visit with, I've had the opportunity to visit with several of the counselors and with the city manager and with some of the other community members, like our volunteer departments, that this would drastically impact. And I've made the statement, you know, if my wife, after 50 years of marriage, started looking for a new husband, I'd be a little upset. And that's kind of how we feel as a fire department right now. Now, I understand the fiscal side and I understand the city has to be fiscally responsible and answer to their community. But I also feel that we provide a high quality service and we'd be better off.
Ways, and I think this is not the way that we choose to go, but
How much does the city have to start, man, right now? Be based.
I mean, it all depends on how much we take away from the fire side. Right now, our city funded budget for this year is almost 2.8 million. And then roughly 750,000 is supplemented by our EMS billing revenue to help cover a portion of what we cost. And then we receive fire fund and EMS fund.
The run calls themselves. Don't pay any money.
No,
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 never have.
never have. Now granted, 750,000 is a lot of money, but when it costs us more than double that to provide the service, there's an issue in the system that we can't fix tonight.
That's what you remember.
That's the EMS billing revenue that's projected, or no, that's the EMS billing revenue from last year. This is just over 740 something thousand.
You're gonna have to supplement, you have a private company, you have to supplement, they're not gonna come in with 740,000.
No,
No.
450,000.
Yeah.
You still, like I said, something another 1.5 million in
Mhm.
a few years.
well, and if you look at it in personnel, if it's the cheapest agreement out there, like Grants has, that's for 2 ambulances for 120,000 a year, plus the loss of EMS billing revenue, that would cost me 3 people per shift. And we don't have enough people to safely respond to a residential structure fire with 8 per shift. So,
well, and I think the way our agenda showed is the discussion, so as far as the discussion goes, let the record show that we did discuss this, and with the discussion and the information that we did receive from the chief, that we are in favor of basically unofficially keeping it to the,
Yeah, right.
until we hear anything further, and kind of like what you were saying, chief, I don't think they're going to try to rush into this. I think this is gonna be, there's gonna be more discussion and going on, but let them know as far as the records show that the committee is like to remain.
if they do get ready in between now and the next quarter, I will let you know and like the chairwoman make her decision on whether or not to do a special meeting, but I greatly appreciate your support and all that you do in being here.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, moving on to item number D, discussion regarding speed bumps.
Hi, Public Safety Committee. So I'm here before you today, because I was directed to, if we start doing speed bumps that people apply for, that it come to some type of hearing for people to give their opinion, in case they do not want a speed bump in their neighborhood. So this was the first one that we're trying. We sent letters out, so it allows the surrounding area to come speak their mind if they'd like to, but not going to city council or planning and zoning to kind of slow them down a bit. So we sent out 10 letters on a speed bump request at South Avenue G 15 block. So we did everybody within 50 feet of where the proposed speed bump would be. Our public infrastructure director chose the best place for that speed bump to go and then gave me the addresses to send the letters out. We received 7 return receipts, meaning that people had went and signed for their mail, having received it, but we only received 1 response back of someone who supported the proposed action of the speed bump in their neighborhood. So it's just a discussion item. Give anyone a chance to discuss it if they were unhappy. Since no one's here, if you guys have any questions for me, I'll do my best to answer, but this is our first one, so go easy on me.
So if someone requests a speed bump in their neighborhood, basically, it's not gonna go to planning commission or anything, basically you will send out letters to begin with, that will be the first step.
Yeah, we'll send out letters letting them know of this next meeting for here, so they can come speak it with you. Get a chance to say it, and then you can have a discussion, recommend approval or recommend against.
You're gonna come to us and about speed bump?
Yes, I was directed to bring it to this committee for speed bumps. Yes.
Well,
Well,
it looks that you have at Mr. Kane at the high school parking lot. How does that affect? Is that pretty good?
Park on both sides. We're gonna use red brick.
mhm. And I,
So then once, like, for example, this one, there was only one in favor of allowing one to commence, so
Yes.
basically.
it's up to you guys. The city manager wanted a place for, and the mayor wanted a place for people to come speak their opinion. Since no one came to protest, usually that's a good thing for planning and zoning committee, but I can't speak and say that they're for it because they didn't return any responses. But we did send out the letters. Let me see my date, quite a while ago, and we sent them out on the 17th. So people did have time to respond and no one reached out with questions or concerns.
So where does it go from here
Based off of the discussion that would have been had if anyone had shown, if you guys are okay with it, then if we have the money for it, it'll get put in.
What does the letter said?
The,
This-
yes. It says, no, it just says the Public Safety Committee will meet on May 30th at the council reading. Testimony will be heard at the time regarding to this proposal. And just invites people to come and speak their piece if they're for it or against it.
Is this something we have to have like on hand? Are they gonna start requesting them? You have a good place today on Mr. Payne, because we've got quite a few there. In high school.
Yeah, if we get approval here, then
Had some put it by ward a few months ago. About 2 weeks ago.
yeah, and that'll be if they have the money and they can't order them, it has to come here first. But if there's no big protest, then they get ordered, they're approved.
By those revenue students.
Yeah, like hard. remember?
Yeah, I knew those.
They put up signs like at 15, 20 feet before the bump, so people are aware of them.
You got some on your, in your.
In my ward.
Okay. I think once they start seeing them, then
Yes.
we've even had people from Clovis come and they're like, wow, you have them in your neighborhood?
Yeah.
Where can we be?
Yes.
Yes,
And I know since we started this as our first test one, we already have other people that are going through the website trying to apply to get more in their neighborhood as well.
I'll bet those might be on state contract. Might find them on state contract.
Yeah, but contractors will involve outside.
Yeah.
The idea. Taking the job. I'm sure they're all hard to
Okay, just another way to keep our drivers slowing down.
Yes. And yes, they do
I know it
speak,
even happens at the university, so.
yes. But we had put some in without per request and some of the neighbors were upset. So this was up management's way of making sure everyone had a chance to say what directly impacts them.
But it has to be within a certain.
50
perimeter,
feet.
correct?
Yes, ma'am.
50 feet from where they're going to place them.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, really good. Okay, well, we appreciate it very much. Any other discussion or questions?
On the speed, for her.
Yes,
Okay.
no, okay. Okay, here we go to item number E, other business, any matter not known about or which could not have been reasonably foreseen prior to the time of posting the agenda. Discussion of action may be taken on any other business. Counselor, commit, yes.
So I spoke with the city manager the other day about the intersection of Kilgore and 70 stoplight. It's pretty bad intersection here. And I think one of the issues is if you're on Kilgore turning south on 70 coming into town, there's no green arrow, it's just a green light. So people are having to wait, or they think they can drive in front of the car. That intersection is so long. So I proposed to her to reach out and try to figure out if we can't get a new light structure up there to get a green arrow signal. So people can turn safe. I know Chief just had a wreck, what was it Friday afternoon?
Yeah.
Friday.
Is that up on Walmart?
I don't know if you
Yeah.
know the reason for the wreck, but
She ran the light.
she ran the light. So that intersection is just so wide. And the lights myself, I feel like they're small. They need to become bigger and we need to get green arrows from Kilgore turning on the 70 and from 467 turning on the 70. And I think that was it.
Usually never the red light at the railroad track.
I know.
Yeah.
Yeah, what did it?
That is.
So
And Bill said it stopped all the way. up the road.
when we put lights there, is it the state highway? Does it have to come from the state highway?
The state highway has to
Approve it?
authorize any changes. And yet we're responsible for the maintenance.
Well, and I always wanted
everything.
lights there too, not just the stoplights. But like lights, so we can light that corner up, because that is like really dark if you're coming in and it's dark and. Of course, if people light, but you can't see where you're supposed to go, or like you said, it's. If you're on 70, you're gonna turn left and go down Kilgore.
Yeah, the unfortunate part is we have so much state highway that we travel around in town and we have to have DOT authorization to do anything along those right of ways.
Right,
Sarah said she's gonna reach out to the state and see
okay,
about getting the new light structure there.
okay, that would be really good. That would be really good. But yeah, you have to be preventive rather than reactive. Proactive. And also, thank you for bringing that up. Did anybody else have a discussion on that? Also, in our last meeting, I'm not sure who had requested the no parking be like by McDonald's down in that area. And they put up signs, but they also needed it yellow and then no parking, so that is something good. Yes.
And except that I have seen several trucks heading north.
Really?
Oh,
yeah. There are marks on the yellow curve.
Yeah, you can see the tire marks on the
Yeah.
yellow.
Yeah, if you look at McDonald's, you can see the tire just where they parked right there still.
It just means we need to enforce.
Yeah.
Sometimes the officers are busy where they can't get to it, but
We, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, enforce it, but that's good, but I mean, having a state highway through our community, because I was checking with Sarah today on our sweepers. Now that we had this big crazy storm. There's everything debris and everything in our streets, and I asked, the status of the sweeper, so they could start operating and going through, but she said, remember first and second, our main highway.
First, second, third, Main Street.
Exactly.
Double.
So we have to.
For 206.
Lloyd Highway.
So I'm just like, okay, yeah, it's, it's important to us, but to the state, it's probably like, yeah, I don't put you on our list.
I think she said we have to share that sweeper with. I wanna say Roswell or something like that, but I don't think we're sharing it because I've never seen that. Yeah, we only have one, so we have to share it.
They don't have one. We have to.
Well, we don't have one.
The DOT gets a sweeper?
Yeah, I've seen it out here one time.
Yeah, I do too. Is the state in charge of all construction and traffic control when they're doing work on that road? It was supposed to not need anything for 200 years, but anyway, or at least 100. But at any rate, right there by Daylight Donuts, okay? That in the last 6 months, a couple of different times, there have been people out there working on something they're digging up under the highway.
We're working on
Okay.
one.
I understand that we can't tell the state what they need to do. But that thing is, if you're going toward Clovis, that thing is right around the curve. I was right beside a big semi. Okay, nothing ahead. Now they have put up, the last time they did it, they put up a sign that said work ahead. That's no good. There's a lot of people who don't pay any attention to signs. I would recommend that I would ask them if they wouldn't please put orange barrels all the way back around the curve and force everybody to get over into the single lane, or you're gonna kill somebody.
Good.
Maybe we should have had Mr. Chavez here too. It's the team in charge of the street.
Oh, no. That would be really good, Mr. Dennis. He's with the state highway department.
No, Steve Chavez, our
Oh, Steve
city
Chavez.
street guy.
Oh, okay.
He's the one who's responsible for all the barricades, road signs, all that,
Okay.
everything with the roads.
That's a good idea. When we're two lane and you're in this lane and all of a sudden you come and it's right there. It's because- And then right there by Daylight Donut where
Yeah,
people are sitting in the roadway to get to
Where you
the.
get that, and then they're going to the little coffee shop.
Right,
Yeah.
exactly. It's just.
they typically do that on major highways. They make you merge way before the
Right.
work ever happened.
Right, and I wonder, and you would think that the state highway would say. It has to be so many feet
Yeah.
prior to the work being done, I mean, not just right there, so. We can check. We can check on that.
They do also make portable ones, so we got them from the state for checkpoints.
Okay, very good. Anything else from the committee? No, anything else from anyone else? Yes.
Do we want to clarify time?
Oh, okay, yes, there was kind of a mix up. I thought that we changed the time to 5 and then Carl and I had a discussion that it's 5:30, so I know last time it was kind of a mix up. So what is the pleasure of the committee? What would you rather 5 or 5:30? Which one works better or does it? 5.
Whatever fits everyone, I'm fine.
That's all right.
Fine.
Yeah.
Fine, okay. Fine, okay, so if
Fine.
you would put down that from now on, our meetings will be done. Very good. Okay, if there's nothing else, then we see you.